Look, this is a very interesting topic, and we're kind of hoping to have a really deep dive into the discussion of where we are with AI in learning technology. Obviously, there's lots going on, and there's a lot of hype, and we kind of hope to cut through the clutter. And we've got a panel of two fantastic panelists, David Hegarty and Stacey Fisher, who have huge amounts of experience in learning technology specifically, but in learning and development for a very long time. So I've known them. I know they're experts in their field. So kind of looking forward to seeing what they have to share with us and also the insight. We'll move on and look. Couple of minutes on Learning Cafe because we're kind of starting this new iteration of Learning Cafe. Learning Cafe has been around since 2013, and some of you might have known and heard that about Learning Cafe and participated in some of the previous events, but it is a community of forward-looking professionals interested in frank discussions about current issues and hoping to build the skills and also the mindset required to take our profession forward and deliver value in the organizations that we work for, especially our learners. The new focus that we have really is around AI, which is the reason why we've kind of come out of hibernation because we think that there is actually something to talk about now. And we kind of believe that because spent a couple of the last 18 months or so doing a fairly deep dive in AI, believe it'll fundamentally change the way that L&D operates, works, and delivers value. So we proactively need to examine those aspects so that we're kind of ready for the future. And in particular, we've kind of focusing on two things. Number one is preparing L&D professionals and function for the post-AI adoption world, and that includes assisting with new skills and mindsets. So we've got a series of workshops which we're going to run in the next 12 months, but also adapting the learning function to this post-AI world. So anticipating what it'll look like, what our customers and our learners will demand from us, and are we ready to provide that? But more importantly, hopefully Learning Cafe does become a platform to experiment and collaborate on the different aspects that we're discussing. So this one, we'll have Stacey talking about AI in content development. We'll have David Hegarty, who will be talking about AI in LMS and also LXP. And they'll be talking about their take on what is the status of use of AI in those platforms, but also where they see it going. Both David and Stacey are very hands-on, so we'll be able to give you a realistic picture of where we are and where we're going. I will be focusing on what we're sharing with you some of the features that are available now within Gen AI platform for self-directed learning, what I'm calling hyper-personalization of learning, and I'll show you an example of how I've done it. So I'll share that as my as a third presentation. What we've got here also is just clarifying some terms and assumptions. So first of all, this discussion is mostly around Gen AI. We aren't touching so much around agentic AI. Secondly, a couple of assumptions we are making is that AI will continue to develop at this current pace and won't be stopped by legislation, which is a possibility. The second assumption is that personal uptake by us, which is within our personal environments, will push corporate adoption because all of a sudden we're kind of used to using AI for our personal stuff, and we would like to use it for work stuff. Some survey results, and thank you very much for filling in the registration form. It is actually quite valuable data. The first question that we asked was the state of adoption of AI in your organization in learning, and most of you have kind of indicated that you're still in preliminary stages, which kind of indicates, according to the ITIL maturity model, it's kind of in the initial stages, right? So it's still a little bit unplanned, a little bit chaotic, very little governance. People are trying and experiment. So it's a little bit of the Wild West at the moment, but what we've got here is a very interesting thing. I was a little surprised by this result. The 60% want personalized learning paths and content recommendations. It's a bit of a shame that our current LMSs and LXP can't do that. Partly it's because of what you see on the right-hand side, is that even if they do have the ability, it's the lack of detailed skills, job information. We haven't tagged our learning content well enough. Then plus there are privacy concerns which kind of stymie personalization of learning. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. In terms of the content creation, my fault, I left the question a little bit vague. transforming the learner experience. So I'm not quite sure what I meant by that, but it is the choice of most people, around 40%. So I assume this is around, personalization, making sure that the content is more engaging, more relevant.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And I'll flip over and get you flip some slides and then pop across to a demo. Yeah, it's been really interesting. I work for a company called Wetfish, and that's the latest in a 25 years, I guess, of online learning companies that I've been involved in. And it's exciting because I think probably in the last 20 years or so, this is the most chance that we have felt that we can genuinely move the needle on safety and performance and all the reasons that we got into this business in the first place. So what I wanted to do is start just really briefly with the big picture about who's telling the story and where we are. Sort of zoom in on something that people are probably more interested in, which is a really practical example of what we've done to AI enable a really large scale public-facing learning portal, and then look down a little bit more closely at some other things we can do, and then talk about just some of the really, just a few of the nerdy lessons that we've talked about there. I won't go too much into that because people would probably have some fairly specific questions. Next slide, please, Julian. So one of the things that I think is really critical to how many people are in this virtual space at the moment is I can't remember a time when there was as much of a challenge to what our value is and where we sit in the picture. If I think about the sharing of knowledge, we started out a long time ago and it was kind of one-to-one, parents with children, whatever that might have been. The world got bigger, more complicated, and we needed to move to that kind of model where a lecturer is speaking to a group, or the Dutch East India Company needed to make sure that people who were working in the outposts of the British Empire could all, read, write, use the same language skills like that. So, and at that point, we invented this concept of the teacher, somebody who mediated between the knowledge that was in the heads of the experts or the experiences and so forth, and shared that with people. And really, what we've done in the last few decades I've been involved is say, well, that process, that teacher has evolved into learning designers, HR departments, learning systems, and we sit. What we really do is we sit between this incredible funnel of information in our organizations, which is the expertise, the processes, the guidelines, the experience. We distill all of that down into this tiny little piece, which is the learning that we deliver to our people. And so we're not the experts ourselves, but we're the mediators of that. And so we've done this incredible job of creating tens of millions of dollars worth of highly focused, interactive, responsive content that distills all that knowledge down. And we're the place that people go to, except that they don't. So one of the organizations that we're working with at the moment, for example, which is a great public-facing health group, they're just finding that the amount of hits on all of their wonderful resources is sort of, to be honest, falling off a cliff, because the people who are looking for those answers are just simply using ChatGPT or whatever, and it's not getting back to their stuff, which is it's not behind a password, but it's deeply buried in a learning portal. So as people responsible for those stories, we've really got to find a way of making sure that the value that we've added from that condensation and distillation is still available. Next one, thanks, Stephen. So yeah, just visualizing that, all that expertise up until last year, we funneled it down, put it through some learning design and created the content. Next one, please, Jeevan. And the sort of assumption is that when people use AI, that our learning design, that function has simply been replaced by AI to some extent. One more, please, Stephen. Except that it isn't, because AI doesn't look inside a SCORM learning course. AI doesn't look inside the expertise that is contained in the dozens of knowledge repositories scattered around our organizations. So it's not really a direct one-for-one replacement saying AI is replacing all of the learning function. It's just kind of creating something else which is not leveraging any of that critical expertise and knowledge particularly effectively. Thanks, Jim. So moving on to a case study, our largest project has been all in mental health workforce development, called MHPod. And it has a huge range of resources, microlearnings, resources, courses, all sorts of stuff that we're trying to partner. And we were looking at how we could not have that be sidelined if all of the workforce are just going to AI and going, I'm having a meeting with a client who I think might be perhaps having an eating disorder. How do I start that conversation? And getting answers which would be partly potentially from websites and so forth, partly from a Venezuelan beauty influencer with an idea about it. No idea really where that content came from. So how do we best enable this learning platform to make sure it's effective? Next one, please. Just a little bit of background about it. There's 85,000 mental health workers engaged with it, 11,000 new ones this year. And our usage has stayed pretty steady. It hasn't been harmed in that sense by AI, but that's partly because a lot of people are sort of required to do it. Okay, thanks, Jim. So the three lessons that I wanted to look at, first of all, how do we enable that learning platform? So I'll stop the PowerPoint for a second and get myself over to a screen share. Learning portal, which has got a library of what we call topics, which most people would call courses, SCORM courses, microlearnings, all those other resources. So the first thing was, okay, if someone's got a question, in that we've got millions of dollars and thousands of hours of focused resources. So we just said, let's use AI to ingest just these resources. A couple of critical things about that. This has to be running sovereign in Australia. Not one byte can leave Australia, and none of the learnings that we get from this are shared with anybody. So if somebody says, I've got a meeting with Jeevan this afternoon about his anxiety about webinars, the learning model, the LLM is not going to learn those terms about it. So the first thing is you can say, all right, now, is that showing a pop-up? If it's something which we don't specifically have, the first thing we want to do is say, we actually don't have any content that's around that, because that's one of the critical things that happens with Ask ChatGPT or something. It will always give you an answer. So specifically here, we've got stuff about AOD, we've got stuff about mental health. We don't really connect the two of those two things together, but it's potentially could be found in that place. Whereas if I say I is, and I'll get an answer which is drawn entirely from this resource. It will also show me if it picks up a video or something in there, it'll give me links to it and drop me right into the right point in the content. So we've got that for every single topic. So you can ask a question just of that topic, or you can ask a question of all of MHPod. And that will also include resources and other pieces like that. So the second thing is then, gee, it'd be good to actually make the learning itself a little bit more available through AI. So one of the things in mental health, things like that, is we have this soft skills, which we can't get when we do a simulation or we do an exercise, we don't really have any way of providing you got it right or you didn't do it well. So we typically just put up, tell me what you saw, here's a model answer. What we've done here with AI is say, all right, we'll have the AI look at the student's answer, the model answer from an expert, and all of the content which is contained here. So we'll go, what could you say to help understand her rights?
What you're saying is that at the moment there isn't, I guess the Gen AI that's available within organizations like Copilot, etc., right, are not able to tap into
No.
the resources that are available in learning resources, which have been vetted, endorsed, etc. And what you're working on is a way to kind of get around that. But you are finding challenges to do that.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about this use of AI within is that it gives you an answer that is bringing together what the student thinks, what the expert thinks, and and again, if there's no real answer there, then it will point you back at it. Actually, just being able to ingest, and this is obviously in beta, we're just developing this, but being able to ingest all of this content and make sure that the school material is available to people, and will provide deep links directly into the course. So if I drop into a course, then it gives me an answer. It will drop me right to that spot. I think that's really important.
Just while you're doing that, David, I really support that real highlight here, which is, or it's such a big highlight that you've built a tool that can read within the SCORM files themselves.
Yeah.
That information, as you've explained, has been locked away for so long, and it's a real achievement to you that you've built such a sophisticated tool that can read within those files.
Yeah, I mean they're messy, and just as pick a privilege in the LMS. So we've worked out how to do it for storyline courses and RISE courses and things that are similar to that. If somebody comes up with an LMS, comes up with an authoring system which is different, because the challenge for the AI is that the structure of that, I mean, the SCORM course itself is just a data blob, so that's no good. It gets expanded into, inside the LMS into something which has got resources here, links here, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's actually really hard for AI to actually understand and come up with an answer that brings that out. The last thing is just the just-in-time application. So this is something where, for instance, in this case, there's a new Act of Parliament that essentially is saying this is how you're supposed to work. And when they build something like that, we build, all these other resources, which are all designed to try and help somebody use that Act of Parliament. It's impossible for somebody who's trying to make a decision about how they're going to interact with somebody. I think the Act itself is 862 odd pages long. The bit you need is scattered across multiple clauses. So it's really helpful in this case to say, all right, well, here's some sample questions. I want to know, how do I support people in making decisions? Then let's have something that looks at the Act of Parliament, looks at all of these other resources, and nothing outside of that. That's the critical thing. If the answer is not here, it will not hallucinate it, and it will not go outside and pull a bit somewhere from the internet. And then if that's, oh yeah, that do my own due diligence, that looks interesting, I want to see that in the Act, then take me to part 3.2 of the Act so I can see exactly where you got that from. And if I'm interested in the supported decision-making piece, then take me right to that piece. So the idea is, when you ask a question in a critical situation, in this case, because you're making decisions about interacting with somebody about their mental health, then you don't just want a glib answer. You want an answer that has a couple of characteristics. It needs to be really accurate. And that means it can only come from these sources. The second thing is, this is the down in the weeds part, those sources do not come into AI cleanly at all. Those sources come into AI and they're absolutely full of errors. So headings don't map to content, all that sort of stuff. So part of our workflow is you get to look at, a human being gets to look at that, seeing what the document looks like in markdown form in the system before the AI gets to look at it. So you make sure that the connections are correct and that it makes kind of cognitive sense and logical sense. And that's sometimes, a great example is an infographic that's got a series of things, arrows going in a circle. The AI doesn't know what those arrows mean. So the whole meaning of that infographic is not just difficult for AI to get, it'll take a stab at it and it will be completely incorrect. So something
David, sorry, just interrupting, the question both for you and Stacy, is if that is a case where the SCORM content, including images, is very difficult for AI to interpret, although, anyway, I'll leave that aside. Is there anything that we can do at the moment with the instructional design, like storyboards, that can make it a bit easier? I don't know, like describe the image as part of your storyboard so that the AI, when it does reach it, can make more sense of it, or have some metadata or tags or something like that? Is that, Stacy? I'm both open to both you and David, you and Stacy, but also
David, I would get you to answer this one. I think it's a little too technical for me right now. We're still working on this ourselves at IMC to get AI to read the SCORM content. So yeah, David, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's never been a more important time for there to be good metadata.
Mm.
The, there's some other, I mean, there's some other, uh, it's what we're mainly concerned about is telling somebody the wrong thing, is having AI tell somebody the wrong thing. So we were initially just concerned about, oh, sort of way of making this, can we make it faster? Can we make it better? But we were still getting, I don't know, maybe 5% just egregiously wrong answers. And so one of the main, particularly because you're not just looking to document, you're looking at huge number of documents. So it's fragments, it's a vectorized data set. And so the AI is just pulling something from one document, something from another document, conflating those two things together and creating completely incorrect answers, which is why you only ever get to about 75% accuracy, I think, generally with AI. So some of the under the hood things that we've had to do to make it accurate. The first thing is look at it. Don't just throw it at the AI and assume it's correct. Look at what the AI is actually doing and be prepared to spend some time and money cleaning that up. So that can be as crude as just going, well, that just did not work, so we're going to rebuild that. A good example, I mean, AI just generally understands things in table forms really well. So if you've got a beautiful graphic, at some point you're probably going to have to turn that into a table, which just because then the AI can kind of map it. And then you've got to look at that and see, has that what the AI has actually done? That's a really critical piece, I think, to make sure that it's accurate. Making sure that, that the transcripts work. That eating disorders one I was just looking at, it's got some YouTube clips in it from a major public hospital in Victoria. For some reason, when they did them, they let it make the transcripts be all in Dutch. And so that doesn't work particularly well. The work we're doing with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander groups, it's a real challenge. There's no large language model for those languages, so they're looking for solutions in their own language. But we can't meet that. There's a range of challenges like that. Does anyone know if there's a next version of SCORM coming out? So
just a question for the audience. I'm just wondering, surely they must be working on, and hopefully they are, but they haven't actually made too much movement on upping the SCORM standards. But that's a good segue. David, thank you very much for your presentation. And I know our webinars are always running short of time because we try and cover so much. So it is my fault, but that's by design because if you don't want the participants to get bored, I guess. So keep it interesting. And moving on to Stacey. Stacey, over to you.
Thank you, Jeevan, and thanks for having me today. I'm excited to have a really good collaborative discussion about AI in content development. So changing gears slightly here from David's showcase there, which was great. And look, in my role, I work less on the technical aspects of AI than you, David, but I do work for a global learning technology company. I have access to lots of great tools, insights, and resources, and I have been in the content space for 15 years, as much as we do not like to quote the amount of years we've worked in such spaces, Jeevan, but yeah, always on the vendor side. So I'm looking forward to what I've observed during this time. So we'll just stick to some really practical stuff today, practical benefits. I'll share screen in a little while and show you just very quickly because of time constraints, just super quick, a couple of the tools that are on the market today. They're both our tools and what you can have access today, and then we'll talk just very briefly about the future and what that may hold. So my journey, I've been in content for 15 years. I transitioned over to Learning Tech about 2 years ago when I joined Sheer IMC, and my path during that time has been from account management. I joined Learning Seat way back in 2010 when content was king and the LMS did an okay job. I ran the PMO there. I ran operations, overseeing teams of IDs, devs, and graphic designers. And then I moved into more hands-on PM for content development. When I set up the PMO at Learning Seat, I inherited over 200 bespoke client content projects at the time, and it was completely overwhelming, and no surprises to anyone on the call, but many were delayed. SMEs had left, we couldn't get access to them. Projects had gone off the rails after months of development, and customers were saying some of them were saying, let's not proceed, it's irrelevant now, it's been too long, let's abandon the projects. And put the remaining budget into something else. It was a bit of a nightmare. And obviously that was 15 years ago or 13, and things have changed. So we don't have the budgets we used to. And tools like Storyline, Rise, Evolve, even Beyond have all changed. They've improved a lot, and processes have improved. And in general, tech has made those content builds a lot shorter, and we know more about the science of learning as well now. So we have different end products on the market. So we've rolled out micro learning, branch scenarios, and even spaced repetition, thanks to Ebbinghaus and his forgetting curves. So a lot has happened in those 15 years, but we've seen nothing like AI, nothing that has the impact and the potential of AI in this space. And working on the vendor side, I've seen millions spent on content development, and what I've learned is that not everything's created equal. You know, our research, as you can see on screen here, is and my practical experience definitely validates this, is that 70 to 80% of the resources are spent on this routine reality. So it's the content that's necessary but has little impact. So next slide, Jeevan, thank you. So we're looking at sort of two worlds of content dev. Some projects deserve, I think, every dollar an hour spent on them. And these are these ones on the left, high stakes projects, measurable ROI, high outcomes, whether it's behavioral change, safety, physical or emotional, moving metrics, really clear ROI, financial, psychological, or otherwise. I've worked on governments, I haven't worked on governments at all. I've worked on projects for state government, housing associations, keeping people safe, you know, where the line between helping and personal safety is very blurred. Indigenous awareness campaigns, you know, we've been on site filming, creating these amazing campaigns that create empathy and curiosity and genuinely change how Indigenous customers are served within the banking system. They're the projects that require exceptional instructional design, deep collaboration with SMEs and stakeholders. And I've worked with fabulous IDs that would absolutely kick AI's butt at the discovery and consultation and learning design of projects like that. These projects deserve significant time and budget. And these are where the human expertise, creativity, and empathy are irreplaceable for me by AI. Then we've got all the other stuff, which is what I have called routine reality, which is the information dissemination. Outcomes are lower. We're not keeping people safe. It's necessary, as I said before, but not transformative, and it's taking up the bulk of resources, people, time, and money. And it's the reason why when you get an SME knock on your door, you're telling them it's 6 to 8 weeks before you start a new project with them. And I guess the headline there for these ones is that, yeah, this is the majority of the work. It's necessary, not transformative. And this, for me, is where AI changes everything, which is back to my title here. I think it is a bit of liberation. And if you can just click there, Jeevan, the reason why I think this is critical now, maybe a couple of clicks, sorry, I probably shouldn't have put the animation on, is because it's a strategic shift that's required. If you've been to any L&D forum or event in the past few years, you would have heard the same challenges and highlights from experts in their field, like Aaron at ANZ or Donald Taylor, who's the founder of the L&D survey series. They're all saying the same thing. L&D need to be strategic. They need to be talking in terms of ROI, addressing real business challenges, and these current and emerging AI technologies allow us to do this. And if you've heard Michelle Gibson at BHP describe how she secured an enormous budget to bring diversity into her apprenticeship program, it's clear to me that she wasn't lost in the weeds of operational work. She was committing to ROI and getting her seat at the table. So it means more time analysing data, understanding outcomes of your team's efforts, measuring business impact, and getting L&D to be a strategic partner, not just a content factory. Next slide, Jeevan. So some of the real current applications and benefits, I'll quickly zoom through these. You've got speed and efficiency. So we've got just-in-time training, getting it out while it's still relevant to the business and being able to respond to the changing needs of your business as well. Cost savings, of course, development costs reduced dramatically. Translation costs, these used to be $3,000 a pop, and you had to develop another file, write Now it's all automated using AI. Of course, a human should check translations done by AI, and it can all be managed in one SCORM file, reducing the admin on translation and localization. Decentralized creation or citizen development, whatever you want to call it, it's surfacing knowledge out of the SMEs' heads and reducing the bottlenecks. ESL inclusivity is something that's really, really important to me, and I think it's something we should really highlight. Letting consumers, learners consume content in their own native languages lowers the cognitive load and improves their understanding and knowledge retention. It breaks down language barriers at scale. If you've got someone that's trying to learn about a policy or procedure and that's complex enough, before that they're having to work to translate that into their own native language, then that's just cognitive overload, and the outcomes aren't going to be the same as them learning in their native languages. So this opens the door to that, and it's a much more inclusive learning space. Strategic allocation, we've talked about that. So letting AI take up the bulk of the operational grunt work allows you to focus on those high ROI initiatives. It allows you to be more creative with your learning and produce campaigns. Really easy, quick tools to use, allow you to create lots of additional assets to sort of scaffold the formal learning, and then you can start creating campaigns. And of course, scaling up. So traditional face-to-face interactions can now be scaled through the use of coaching and conversation tools powered by AI as well. Next slide, Jeevan. So I'm going to jump into our tools in a sec. Just before I do, sorry, I've put a little bit of animation on this slide too. God, that's annoying, Jeevan. If you can just click on there one more time. What we're seeing through our customers and my interactions with customers is that they're building their toolbox, and I think it's the best. I'm seeing the best outcomes when they're following this sort of approach, which is not just trying to find the one AI powered tool that's going to do everything for you in content, because you won't find one that's doing everything really well. Build your toolbox. And the question is, what tools have real business application here within my business, and what challenges do I face? And if you need something that creates video powered by AI, then you get the tool that does that. You get the tool that creates, there's the course authoring tool. You get the tool for conversation and coaching, and you build this toolbox of, best of breed or best fit for your organization, and use those collaboratively. So don't just try and find the one tool that'll do it all, because I think that that'll do your head in, and also you won't find one that's I think adequate if it's trying to do everything. Next slide, Jeevan, thank you. But I think I will take over here. Let me just get this on. I just need to make sure I'm going to share my audio. Beautiful. All right, can everyone see that the IMC Express screen there? I think you should be able to. Yep, beautiful. Thanks, David. So IMC Express is our AI-powered authoring tool. There are many AI-powered authoring tools on the market. I'm going to talk about some of the features that are in ours. Some are unique, I think, and others will be fairly standard. But I'm just going to give you a really quick overview of how AI can support your content creation. In a tool like this, and in any tool similar, you'll be able to create content manually, drawing in content from Word docs or other sources, PowerPoints, PDFs, and then you might use the AI features to enhance that existing content, which is a smart way to do it, because if you've already had an SME write up the content, then bring it in and then enhance it. But if you're at a point where you need AI to generate the content, then these tools have such strengths in this space. What I'm going to do is click here and get my AI assistant Iris to do it. Now, I've already started this because she's very, very comprehensive and thorough. I'm just going to scroll up to the top. I didn't want everyone to have to sit through all of this because I didn't want to eat up a couple of minutes of my demonstration. So this is Iris, and she's going to help me create my learning content. And you can see that I've been conversing with her. I've asked her to create, I told her that I want to create a course on the benefits of AI in content development. for use of a better topic. And she's come back to me, and she's now going to ask me lots and lots of prompting questions to really drill down on some very, very important areas. So she's sort of guiding my instructional design. She's enhancing the instructional design that she's going to come up with. And it's topics like description of the course. So what do I want? It's the target group, so asking me about my audience. And when we get to the end of a topic, she just gives me a summary and says, this is what I think we're creating. Are you okay with that? And we move on to the next. So now we're going to talk about target group. So asking me about the primary audience, what knowledge do they have already, and so on and so on. Target groups decided. Then we move on to the learning objectives, which is really where I've left off. So I'm just going to do a couple more. I'll just do the quickest click path through because this will eat up some time. But while I'm doing this, and you can read on screen what she's asking me, but I guess some highlights that I wanted to call out on tools like this is that they have auto layout capability, which means that you don't need to worry about the layout of the content. Responsive design, so they'll present really nicely on whichever device you want them to present on. We can move from laptop to mobile device, and the content shifts and moves and responds appropriately. And we have accessibility built in as well, so meeting accessibility requirements. I'm not reading what she's putting out to me. I'm just clicking through so you can get the gist of what's happening here. Translation and localization is another really important aspect of these tools, really valuable benefit of using these tools. IMC Express translates into over 70 different languages, and the beauty of our tool, and perhaps some others, I'm actually not sure, I think it is fairly unique, is that our output is one SCORM package. So the learner gets to choose their language from a drop-down list at the start of the module, and there's only one file to manage from the administrator's point of view, which is so much simpler and so much cheaper. We can automatically create captions and use AI to create interactions like flip cards, swipe cards, hotspots, and final assessments, quizzes, and then we can use AI to adjust content. So we can shorten it, simplify it, generate an inspirational quote, whatever it might be. And even AI imagery is within IMC Express, and probably most authoring tools. I'm on the fence about AI imagery, but it's getting better quite quickly. So I think we're not far, and we're not seeing as many missing hands or two right feet, or what, all the funny little quirky things we've seen in the past, but it's not perfect. So as I go through, and I actually can't shortcut this one at the moment. So what I've done is I've done exactly the same process before the webinar today, so I could show you the end outcome. But I hope you could see there that the types of questions. Now we're using Claude for this new enhancement to the tool. As I said, it only came out last night. So last night, because it was released from Germany, which is where our headquarters is. So it's hot off the press, and you'll be the first ones to see it. So I'm really pleased about that. But what I love, and I guess from being from a content background, is that we've gone from putting it on the author, me, here, to write a prompt that got me what I needed, to now taking that out of my hands and taking the pressure off me and having an AI assistant guide me through all these very, very important questions. And she is adapting and being very dynamic as I put my input in here, as you could see. So I'm not going to go to the end, because then we've probably got another 60 seconds or so for her to actually create the course. But what I will do is go to the course that I created earlier. And all I've done for this one is I've added a theme, so some branding, which is one click. I've added some images as well, which has really lifted it. And I just deleted a couple of sections because it was too long for the demo. And I've put in a few notes about it being for demonstration purposes. So I will pop a QR code in the chat once I finish talking, where you can scan that QR code and you can access this sample module on your phone. You can just have a flick through to see. So I followed the process with Iris guiding me. I got her to create the content, and I spent probably about 12 minutes before the webinar just just very, very quickly fine tuning. It's not my best work by any means, but I just wanted some cool images for the purpose of the demo. I wanted to put in a couple of notes. I got rid of a couple of questions. I asked her to create some new ones. I just fiddled around with it basically. So it's not ready for consumption, but it's ready for you guys to take a look at. And here we have, I've also added another language. So I added simplified Chinese. So I'm still in the author view. I can view everything in the leading language, which was English, and then the other languages that I can add. I can preview everything on the side here, and I can change the voiceover as well. So it automatically creates voiceover, but I can change. If I don't want to read everything that's on screen out in voiceover, I can just add the highlight points there. I can use voiceover really however I like. I can change characters, lots and lots and lots of options, and there's the Chinese voiceover there as well. So as a preview very quickly as what the learner would see, oh, sorry, I've started midway, what the learner would see in a full screen view here is the course that I've very, very quickly created with a quick quiz question and some interactions. I've got some flip cards and a quick video, which we don't need to watch, popped a TED Talk in there, and then we just carry on with the content. So I can preview that in mobile, tablet, or desktop. And as an author, I'm in and out refining until I'm happy with the end product. So as I said, I'll pop the QR code in the chat. You can have a little look on your phone just to see the basic end product that I've created. But I hope that gave you a practical demonstration of just really the highlights of what a tool like IMC Express can do in terms of the 70 to 80% of content that's important but not life-changing, or for any other reason, really. Within all organizations are different. So yeah, hopefully you've got that. How are we going for time, Jeevan? I probably don't have time.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
Just got a
that's
few
okay.
minutes left, so I'll
No, that's
switch
okay.
over to my
Yes,
presentation. I
please.
do want to thanks, Stacey, for that. That was obviously we need more time to go through that, but just want to very quickly just show the audience what Google Gemini can do, and so can ChatGPT, and say so can Claude. It's just that I'm focusing on Google Gemini at the moment. So what I want to do is just kind of, and this is for you to then go home and play around. I'm using the paid version, $30 per month. But basically, we've got Gemini, which is and the notebook, which is also from Google. And I've been using a combination of Gemini and Notebook LM to actually produce learning resources because Google spends a lot of time or time in education sector. They're actually building what they call a study partner. So they want to be a study partner. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is that you can see that the direction that Gemini and Notebook is going to come to other LMSs, it's going to come to corporate. So it's going to come, but it is here now if you want to try it, right? So basically, Notebook LM is like a private LLM. So it'll only review the documents that you shared with it and nothing else. Gemini, on the other hand, is an all-purpose AI. So using a combination of these two, you can see that in Gemini, there's a thing called guided learning. So if you ask, how to fix a car or how to fix a carburetor, and you tell it, I want a guided learning, it'll ask you what is your starting level, as in if you're a beginner or you're an expert, and then actually break it down into steps. It'll ask probing questions. So it's almost like a coach, and it's available in Google Gemini on the topic that you want to learn for, right? It's still not very polished. It's catching up fast, but a general direction. What is more impressive also is a Notebook LM, which if you feed it policy document or workshop manuals, etc., it will produce an AI generated audio overview, video overview, including graphics, mind maps, reports, flashcards, and quiz. So what I did for the last webinar, which was the grading of learning, I took the webinar recording, the write-up, which is the web content, and then the survey, fed that into Notebook LM, and then I was able to produce two podcasts in two versions. Number one was a very critical version of the discussion. The other one was a very deep dive into the concepts. So you can actually choose what flavor you want. Also, an overview video, an article, a quiz, and flashcards. So that's available now. So you can use this now, but I think what you can see is the direction that these platforms are headed in terms of providing learning features and capabilities to learners, right? So very quickly, I'm going to just make 3 points. Number one is that the workforce will be learning through the AI browser, and LMS and LXP will just be a repository where it'll just track who's actually access that learning through the AI browser, right? So I think it'll be, Copilot, or it'll be Google Gemini. It says that I am, to David's point, a new mental health worker. What do I need to do? It's going to pull in all information plus links to the AI courses, and sometimes specifically to the SCOM courses, or specifically SCOM resources. So that's one thing, just in terms of the engine for learning is likely going to be an AI browser, which might take a couple of years to come through. Secondly, is that learners will be able to use Gen AI and agentic AI to actually set up their learning. So I've set up my own learning, in the timing and the topics and the way I want it, podcasts, etc. And those tools are available now, and I think they'll come into corporate learning platforms or through Gen AI. And I think thirdly, learning professionals will need to redefine the value add, because to David's slide, which he showed the 4 images, in which I guess we are being disintermediatized, right? So our role is reducing, and therefore it needs to change to keep add value. I think that's all I wanted to share, and I really do want to apologize both to David. Sorry, David and Stacy. I know there's a lot to. And what we'll do though, is my promise is that we'll actually set up specific sessions to do a little bit more deep dive into the concepts that David, Stacy, and I have kind of covered. So it'll give you more. This is more of a taster, and I think that is where we will finish. You can see Stacy's QR code coming up. It's 1 p.m., so we'd like to stick to our time. So thanks everyone for joining. I know that 26 of the 31 stayed around for the end. I hope it was value, 60 minutes worth well spent. When you do, please do. I'll